The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has 34 Yiga schematics and 12 schema stones, giving you a total of 46 schematics with pre-built devices in the game. Now we will check out the best ones and how to use them. We start with my personal favorite, the Bolt Boat. This is a very cheap build, only 18 Zonite if you're not using any parts from your inventory. It is something that you can easily build early in the game before you ever get the schematic, and it is very useful, especially when you're going out to Lurelin Village beyond Sokala Point. In neutral, the shock emitter stays out of the water. When you lean forward on the stick, the shock emitter goes into the water, and you see the difference in the way it looks, creating that glowing AoE from the shock emitter. The single best place to use this is off Sokala Point, where you're going to find 3 schools of Porgy, Mighty and Armored grouped together. You just need to look in the air and you can see where the birds are circling. That's where the fish are going to be below. It actually provides some of the parts. So you bring your own sled, bring your own shock emitter, but right here you're going to have the fan, the steering stick, the floating board, and the long piece of wood that you need to pull this off. Very easy to build. Save it in your inventory if you not unlock the schematic early in the game, and then you can go to town. Link does not get electrocuted when the shock emitter is in the water. So this is the perfect height, the perfect build, and the way it's been done. As you can see, a ridiculous amount of Porgy. One of the advantages the boat has over many designs is that the sled allows it to be an amphibious vehicle. So instead of taking the long way around to get to the second farming spot for the Porgy, you can just go straight across the land and go right back into the water. That is the advantage of the boat design with the sled. It's almost like they designed it just to be used in this area. Now we look at the fishing trawler schematic, which does the same thing as the boat, but it has 2 advantages. Number 1, it allows you to collect the fish very easily. And number 2, you do not need to get in the water to collect those fish. Very efficient design. However, 2 disadvantages. Firstly, it is very heavy. So one fan makes it go very slow. Second disadvantage is that it is not amphibious. So you will have to take the long way around to the 3 farming areas for the schools of Porgy. When you have one fan, this is so slow, but it is very effective. The instant scaffold is an easily overlooked schematic. Some people have done reviews in the past and ranked it really low, but that's because they didn't understand that you're supposed to ascend in it. It is the perfect height to ascend into. This is another schematic you can build yourself early in the game before you ever actually get it, and use it when needed. I will show you 2 ways that I have used it in the game so far. Firstly, you could easily spawn the item and use 2 of them to form barriers whenever you're doing a coliseum. And you can even weaponize it with constructed beam emitters, cannons, whatever device you want to use. However, the best use for this schematic is when you're refighting Marble Goma in the depths. I do not recommend you do it in the actual temple fight because he goes on the ceiling in the second phase, but in the depths where he cannot go on the ceiling, it makes the fight insanely easy. It's already easy if you've got this far, but it becomes ridiculously easy. Just build your schematic, set it up on the opposite side from where the chest would normally be, because when phase 2 comes, the game is going to take you down from your scaffold and you'll be starting on the ground. You want to be able to run close to it and just ascend into it. Getting elevation in this game really does make it hard for most enemies to hit you, so it's perfect for this kind of a boss fight. This is a very cost efficient Zonite build that you can use, and I think it's one of the most overlooked and slept on schematics in this game. Another schematic that makes a boss fight much easier is the Rainmaker schematic. A hoverstone, rocket, big wheel, 2 hydrants and a small battery launches into the air and gives you constant water. This is perfect for getting your weapons wet to double damage. These are your Zora weapons, of course. And it makes it refights with Muktarak very easy. When you use it in low gravity in the temple fight, it goes even higher, so it covers a wider area. But this one is definitely one that I have not seen people use as much. I do think it's more useful for the second phase, so I push it into the middle of the arena and don't activate it until phase 2 of the Muktarak fight, because that's where you have the most sludge covering the ground, and this just gives you some extra help in clearing the muck. It's easier for you to move around, he has fewer places to jump to, and really trivializes this fight. Up next is the Shock Trap Yiga schematic. Love this one. Having tried to do this repeatedly in Breath of the Wild, we have a very simple and straightforward way using a shock emitter and metal pieces. You can build this yourself. Find these metal pieces all around Eldin or just above the Coliseum by the bell ringing minigame that's run by the Goron. The shock trap is very interesting because when set up this way, Link can walk right through it without being shocked, but most enemies will get shocked when they walk through. Another benefit is that you can activate it first and then move it with Ultra Hand. It will stay active. This makes it much easier to trap enemies. It's perfect for mobs like these where you have a boss bokoblin and the other bokoblins around. Activate it first, then use Ultra Hand and move it up to them. You do not need to wait for them to walk into the area and then activate it. If you haven't tried out this schematic or a similar build in Tears of the Kingdom as yet, you need to try that out today. Now we're going to focus on the builds that have homing carts attached. The first one we're going to look at is a charge charger. This is a homing cart with a shock emitter at a 45-degree angle on the front and a hydrant on top. It's going to be spraying out water, so it has a much larger area of effect. As you can see, the problem is if you activate it using a melee weapon, you will get hurt. So activate it using your bow. Also, I highly recommend a small battery being added to builds like this, but in the case of the charger, because the enemies are going to be stuck in this shock loop, you don't actually need to have the battery. You'll be a lot closer and can stay closer to them because they're stuck. Now we're going to be looking at another one of these allies. This one is going to be called the Icebreaker. This is a homing cart, a regular long piece of wood, a frost emitter 45 degrees down on top of it, and then a spike ball on the front. You cannot grab the big spike ball that we see in front of some of the Boko bases. This is a spike ball that you would normally find in one of the Proving Ground shrines. It goes to town. The poor enemies are stuck in this frost break frost loop, and it is quite hilarious. As you can see, it can work with mob control as well. The automated ally is a homing cart with a construct head and a flame emitter on it. Not my favorite to use by itself because, as we know, the fire destruction doesn't last that long with enemies. You get out of that one very quickly and they tend not to stay in a loop. So for mob control this is not ideal, but you can pair it with other allies and this can do some serious work. I like to have them work together, so when we pull out a bunch of our automated allies, send them off, and then also customize one with beam emitters, you can have a lot of fun in this game and literally just sit back and watch. You can just view what's happening. I like to also build the instant scaffold, ascend into the top, and now I am very close. If a battery runs out, the devices are going to be still there and running. When I'm out of battery, I can easily have them recharge, and I'm safe. As you can see, I'm staying up here and nothing can hit me because the enemies can't throw that high. So this is perfect combination of a few different schematics. The icebreaker runs into problems in that sometimes enemies are able to hit the large wood that the frost emitter is on top of and break it. Or when you pair it with the automated ally, which has a flame emitter, it catches fire and burns away, so you lose the benefit of the ice. However, it does still have that big spike ball on the front, so it's continuing to do damage. The beam turret is one of those schematics that you actually see it in use by the Yiga clan when you're in the depths. You can actually capture theirs simply by throwing a bright bloom on it. It now becomes your beam turret in the depths and you can use it to your own advantage. The range is a little wonky in terms of how far you can run before it falls over, and then how close you need to get to reactivate it. Here's an example of one that I've captured in the depths. I threw a bright bloom on it, I turn it off, and now move it into the center and reactivate it. It's mine, and it's taking out the very low level Yiga. I've also modified it in the past and put 2 beam emitters on there for the master cover fight. This specific one was in the water. I didn't want to get on the raft. And we have this fun where I put a battery on it, have it lay down in the grass, and then I can surprise some enemies. You can also increase the DPS if you add the second construct head upside down on it and have it become a pulse. Another device that is used by the Yiga inner base in the depths is the beam spinner. This is a hover stone, a big wheel, and a beam emitter on it. Really useful, really good idea for the base of many other builds. If you flip it over and put the hover stone on the ground, then Link can stand and not get hit by the beam. However, it means that any enemies as short as Link won't get hit, so it will not hit bokoblins if you have the hoverstone on the ground. I have found that the best place to use this schematic is right here in the Desert Coliseum, where we have a roof and it's going to be a bunch of Horrorblade. I always deploy 2 beam emitters, set them up here on the ceiling, and then enjoy. This schematic served as the inspiration for the device that my kids and I designed when we were doing our blind playthrough and wanted to easily defeat the army. We built an elevated fort with 2 big wheels, 2 beam emitters on each big wheel, and then a flame emitter and a frost emitter on the bottom wheel. There is also a control stick inside, so you can either hit the wall and it runs, or you can climb on the control stick and activate it. Total destruction from the safety of your own fort. We are going to wrap up this video with a few of what I would consider the best schematics for traversal. So this is transportation within the game. This is going to be one of the coolest ones. This is how I learned what you could really do with stabilizers on vehicles. This is a monocycle. So it's 1 small wheel, and we all probably have a ton of small wheels in our inventory halfway through this game that we're not using because we prefer big wheels. 1 small wheel, a stabilizer, the steering stick, and then 2 lights. And we do hate these lights because we also find them fairly useless. The lights barely use any power, but they're on the monocycle because it allows it to sit on the ground so Link can walk onto the device. If it doesn't have the lights, it falls over to the side. So that's actually what the lights are for. It's for balance. It is very fast. It's a little tricky to get used to driving and controlling because of the turning radius. And of course, it doesn't do very well with steep hills. But for most of the areas that you need to drive around, this is a fun, cheap build. I constantly use this when I was going up to Kakariko village and then going around the back to try and kill the Lionel that's over by the Rabella side. Most of us would have seen the Hovercraft when we went out to the Gerudo region. The shrine right by Karakara Bazaar is where they introduce you to a sliding device, and the Hovercraft is in there. You can build it, save it to your auto build history if you didn't find the schematic. But the Hovercraft also works on smooth, flat ground, so it's really good in the depths, very efficient. It works on land, and while not ideal, it does work on water. In order for it to work on water, you have to pull back on the control stick. It will not stay afloat if you leave it in neutral or press forward. If you want to improve it for it to work on water and land and be a really good amphibious vehicle, look at what the boat did. And so this is going to be the sled, the wood on top, and then you're going to not have to worry about pulling back on the stick. If you want more speed, put 2 fans on it, and now you have a really fast amphibious hovercraft vehicle. Remember, fans use 50% less energy when they're in water. Now we move on to the hot air balloon, one of the first schema stones you get. You don't need a schematic for this, but you do get the schema stone after defeating 1 regional phenomena and then speaking to Joshua, helping Robbie fix his balloon. But you can actually get this into your auto build history very early in the game when you're on your way to the new Serid stable and you first come across Impa. You can save that into your auto build history. I recommend putting a piece of wood in the top and then having the flame emitter here, because you can turn off the flame emitter or run out of battery early in the game and you now have a chance to recharge. Balloons last 2 minutes while wings last roughly 1 minute and 10 seconds. There's also a dirigible schematic that already comes with the torches, so you don't need to add wood. However, it is 2 balloons and it is heavier because of the stone slab, so a single balloon at the basket is faster, but if you forget to put the wood in there, it's going to fall. The launch pad is a useful schematic when you want to get some height but also cover horizontal distance. It's also extremely useful for those crystal challenges where you need to get a crystal somewhere and you can just toss it from your location. Of course, the other spring-based schematic is the triple spring. This is a Yiga schematic. Springs do not really stack after 3, so don't think that, oh, I'm going to put 5 springs or 6 springs and go 5 times as high or 6 times as high. It does not work that way. It has diminishing returns. The best returns are from 3 springs. And the final schematic is the most obvious one. You want to take off vertically. Here's a schematic that includes 2 rockets. An easier way is to simply put an octoballoon in the center of the wing, save that into your auto build, and you can always get vertical lift that way. I hope you found this video worthwhile and enjoy using your schematics in Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.